Welcome to Rewired. Today we're going to explain some of the experimentation that's happening on you and what you can do about it. So the topic for today is A/B testing. It's one of the forms of experimentation that software companies do on their users, which is actually easier to explain, easier to implement, and easier to understand as well. There are other forms of experimentation, but I'll leave those out of this video and can cover them in follow-up videos if people are interested. The first thing to explain is what A/B testing is, because it's not really a commonly used term in the outside of the software industry. So essentially, it's where a software company wants to find out if a new version of a feature that they already have in their app or website is going to perform better than the current version. And typically, they'll have some metric to determine what better actually means, but they'll essentially give these two versions to half of the users each. Then they'll see which half of the users do more of what they want, maybe completing a flow or a purchase or whatever they're looking for. And then they will decide, okay, this one is better, so let's give this one to everybody instead of just half. And then the experimentation is complete, and they'll move on to the next thing. And so typically the difference between the better version and the worse version is a couple of percent or maybe 1%. But and that doesn't sound like a lot, but when you build that up over multiple experiments over years and then potentially multiple teams running experiments simultaneously, this can really add up and move the users to do what the company wants more and more of the time. So, as I said, it's one of the easier forms to implement. And what that means is that actually most companies that you would have probably heard of are doing this in multiple experiments running simultaneously on almost every app or service that you probably use. As an example, when I had an app that was around 10,000 users at the time, I had implemented A/B testing, and it took me about an hour to get up and running. And really, there are services that will enable you to do it that fast. And so now, me as a single person working on this app that I had could have access to that level of experimentation and all the data and analysis that comes with it, really for like 1 hour's worth of work. So it's really easy. And so you can kind of assume that any software that you are using with a roughly significant number of users, maybe 10,000 or more, will be using this form of experimentation to analyze whether their features are performing better as they improve them. So I'd like to give a couple of concrete examples to kind of make it easier to understand how this can be used for good or for bad. So the first one is, let's say a company that helps you transfer money to someone. They have, let's say, a somewhat clunky user interface for you to enter your recipient's details. And they decide, okay, most of our users are falling off in that period of the flow, and so we'll improve that area, and then we think that more people will complete the flow. So they'll go off and build a new version of that form where you enter your recipient details, and their metric will be something like how many users complete the flow and transfer money with them. So they go build this, as I was saying earlier, they roll it out to half the users, and they realize that, okay, the new flow means that 2% more people go through and complete a transfer with us. So then they roll that new flow out to everyone, and if their experimentation was correct, then roughly their revenue will increase by 2%, or at least the number of people completing transfers with them will increase by 2%. So in this situation, you want to transfer money with them. You just found their user interface too difficult to understand, or asking for too much information, or whatever it is, that was the reason why you didn't transfer money with them before, but you do now. And so that's in your interest, right? You wanted to transfer money with them, and so now, because their product has got better, you want to do that, and you have done that, so that's great. So this experimentation works in your favor. But on the other side, you may have a situation where you are playing a game and you kind of just play that game in between meetings or work or on the train or whatever it is. And you never really wanted to spend money, but the experimentation that this company is doing is to tweak small things like the color of the purchase button or the difficulty of the game or things like that, where essentially it becomes harder and harder for you to not spend money in that game. And essentially you may be resilient enough to not spend money, but there will be a couple of % of people who they are pulling into the group that spend money on that game each time they do an experiment. So that is an example where your interests are against the interests of the company. And so in that situation, the experimentation will make the experience worse for you as time goes on. So what can you really do about this? Like I said, basically every app that you're using will probably be using A/B testing. And in terms of websites, if you're in the EU, you'll probably be familiar with the pop-up that shows you, just shows you all the cookies that are being used, and you can opt in or opt out. That will help with some A/B testing on some websites, but really it's not that effective. A/B testing can be done without that, and so don't rely on that. You can reject it if you want, but what you need to do is each time you go and you use a website or a service or an app, you really kind of need to analyze what the company wants. Is that what I want as well? So in the money transfer service example, they want you to make more transfers and you want to make more transfers. So your interests are aligned. In the game example, you want to kill 5 minutes. They want you to spend money in the app. Your interests are not aligned. So if they have a team of people working on these experiments, working on these new features, day in, day out, every day of the year, and you're just trying to fight against that and just using that game, really, it's going to be quite hard to win that battle. And the only way that you're going to win that battle is by knowing you're in one at least. So well done for watching the video, but by actually thinking about what it is that they want and what it is that you want. I hope this has been helpful. I hope that next time you use an app or a service, you take that into account and you think about what they want and what you want, and if those two things are aligned. And really, the only way you're going to win the battle and keep control of your attention is by thinking about these things. So I hope you manage to do that.